Farm Week is a production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, a well-respected expert speaks to the Mississippi Cattlemen's Association about the coming restrictions on antibiotic use in livestock.
Congressman Greg Harper judges this year's Clarke County Special Needs Livestock Show.
In southern gardening, Yaupon holly. It's a native whose colors can dazzle you.
In the food factor, mindless eating. We'll have some tips to cut yours short.
In the markets, cotton tries to hold its own in the acreage battle for 2015 as feeder cattle supplies continue to be very tight.
In the feature segment, the Mississippi Gourd Festival. Most of us think of gourds as a days gone by sort of thing, but you couldn't be more wrong.
And it's an opportunity to really express yourself. And you can do anything to a gourd you can do to a piece of wood.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
The first case of so-called mad cow disease in Canada in 4 years was announced last week.
Leighton, 2011 was the last time such a case was confirmed in Canada. The Canadian government said that a test confirmed the disease on February 7th. It was announced officially on February 11th. This is the 18th such case discovered in Canada since 2003. The U.S. has had 4 BSE cases, and one of those cows was born in Canada. Known scientifically by the name bovine spongiform encephalopathy, the most recent Canadian case was discovered in one cow in Alberta. Canadian officials are now tracking the cow's background. Its carcass did not enter the food chain. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has identified the birth farm of the BSE cow, but it has not released its age. Radio frequency tags have been mandatory in Alberta since 2009. They were voluntary before that. The announcement caused cattle prices in the U.S. to go up. South Korea announced Friday that it had stopped imports of Canadian beef. The World Organization for Animal Health said that the Canadian BSE case would not force a change in the country's export status.
The changes coming as far as the use of antibiotics in cattle was a hot topic at the Mississippi Cattlemen's Convention last weekend. Veterinarian and pharmacist Mike Apley of Kansas State University reminded producers that the use of antibiotics for growth promotion will be gone as of December 2016. But also ahead, he says, are changes to the use of antibiotics in cattle as far as routine prevention and control purposes. A veterinarian will soon be required to authorize and provide oversight for all feed uses of medically important antibiotics in cattle.
For someone who's, for example, using tylosin in the feed, they would need to get a veterinary feed directive from the veterinarian to authorize that. And right now, about 97% of the medically important antimicrobial antibiotic use in food animals is over the counter without the need for veterinary authorization. That changes in December 2016.
Mike Apley says that about 5 to 10% of the details of the feed directive final order still have to be ironed out between now and December 2016. In the meantime, veterinarians as well as producers can expect training opportunities before those changes go into effect.
Each year, special needs students in Clarke County, Mississippi have a livestock show all their own with the assistance of 4-H livestock exhibitors. While the 4-H'ers teach them the ropes of showing animals, they say they're learning a lot about themselves. The show also had a Mississippi Congressman for a judge this year. Farm Week's Amy Taylor reports from Quitman.
Under the watchful eye of 4-H livestock exhibitors, 22 students with special needs received trophies for their efforts at the Special Needs Livestock Show. Clarke County 4-H livestock exhibitor J.C. Waltman and Mississippi State University Extension Service agent Christy King say it's a valuable experience for everyone involved.
These children, they don't have the opportunities to do what we get to do every day, and getting to expose them to different animals, cows, sheep, goat, swine. They usually tour the barn, they get to see all the animals, and then they pick an animal that they want to show. They usually get to interact with you. They get to come in the pen if they would like, get to name the animal, pet it, and then they get to go in the arena and they get to show the animal. Just to see the smiles on their face really gives you a great feeling.
Our regular ed students are working with our special needs kids, and they're learning a greater respect not only for the abilities that they have and to be thankful for what they have, but they're learning that our special needs kids are just like them and they just want to be included too. Each year for our Special Needs Livestock Show, we have a celebrity judge, and we were very honored to have Congressman Greg Harper with us as our Special Needs Livestock Show judge today. This was very special to his heart, as he has an adult son who's special needs with Fragile X syndrome. And he was wonderful in working with our students and interacting with our special needs kids, and they just really had a great time meeting the Congressman.
This year, local special needs students ages 3rd through 12th grade were included in the event. From Clarke County, Mississippi, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
Do you ever find yourself snacking in front of the TV and before you know it, you're surrounded by bags and wrappers and you don't know where the time or the calories went? Well, in this week's episode of The Food Factor, Natasha Haynes of the Mississippi State Extension Service helps us to combat mindless eating.
Did I really just eat the whole bag of chips? Sometimes we do this and we don't even remember how much we ate or even if we enjoyed the taste of the food. But you can avoid mindless eating with a few simple steps. Don't sit in front of the TV or computer. Instead, sit down and eat at the table. Savor the flavor by slowing down and enjoying every bite of your food. Aim to make your meals last at least 20 minutes. Use smaller bowls or plates. People eat up to 60% more when using larger dishes. Remember to keep the tempting treats at the back of the cabinet or refrigerator. Out of sight, out of mind. It's easy to lose track of how much you eat out of a big bag, so put food on a plate or bowl. Like Mama said, you are what you eat, so think your food choices through. It can make a huge difference in your health. It's time to make healthy food a factor in your life.
When it comes to liquids, we drink less from tall, thin glasses rather than short, wide ones. We tend to focus on the glass's height rather than its width.
Does your landscape need some color during the dead of winter? In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman shows us how the native Yaupon holly can be a part of a berry season in Mississippi.
It's hard to come up with color in the dead of winter, and that's when we can appreciate berry season in Mississippi. Many trees and shrubs produce loads of red berries, and one of my favorites is Yaupon holly. Yaupon holly has very distinctive berries. Sure, they're red, and I mean bright candy apple red, but they also have a translucent quality that imparts a gem-like appearance. So in other words, Yaupon hollies are actually garden jewels that will sparkle in your landscape. The bark is a bright gray and accentuates the berry color. You can see native Yaupon hollies growing all across Mississippi along the sides of the road. But there are a couple interesting selections of Yaupon holly that are appropriate for the home landscape. Weeping Yaupon is a small tree that can grow to about 12 feet high, and the branches have a weeping, cascading growth habit. There is a dwarf selection called Schilling's Dwarf that is a slow-growing plant that is perfect for landscape mass or foundation plantings. This plant tolerates pruning and does not bear any fruit, but the foliage is tinged with burgundy and purple and adds a hint of color. Besides adding beauty to our landscapes and food for the birds, these berries are perfect for dazzling indoor displays. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Now, Leighton, the leaves of the wild Yaupon holly can be dried in an oven, and you can make an herbal tea. Native Americans and early settlers are known to have drank it. Make sure, though, it's a Yaupon holly before you try this. In the feature segment today, we'll return to the Mississippi Gourd Fest. You'll be amazed by the many things that you can do with gourds. Time now for the markets with Leighton Spann. And Leighton, you say U.S. meat exporters are frustrated with one particular destination these days?
I think they are. We'll explain why, in fact, they're calling China a vexing country. Also ahead this week, old crop demand pushes cotton prices up. Traders think the downside risk is significant now for soybeans, and there's more evidence the nation's beef herd is expanding. We begin with cotton, where hot demand for quality old crop cotton stocks pushed futures to their highest levels since early January this week. Doan's commentary says it's all tied into the projections that U.S. producers plan to cut acreage sharply this year. Analyst Mark Gold thinks that here in Mississippi, soybeans will be picking up a lot of acres from cotton in 2015.
I spent almost a full week in Mississippi traveling around the entire state, putting on some meetings, and the general consensus is more beans, less cotton down there. And I've certainly seen it, and over the last 2 years, they've had a lot of catfish ponds being turned back into fields, and a lot of that's going into soybeans out here. So the cotton, I think, needs to want to say, hey, don't forget about us out here. And we've had such an incredible break from $2.25 down to 50 some odd cents in this cotton that I think cotton's trying to hold their own in here, and it should.
On Tuesday this week, Arkansas Farm Bureau's commodity staff was advising producers this week might be a good place to start pricing some beans for 2015 if you haven't already. Extension Ag economist John Michael Riley says this month's USDA projections did catch some grain traders off guard. John Michael, any real surprises out of the supply-demand report?
There were. We've been trending toward a market expectation of more grain available. That was built into the expectations leading into this report, both for corn ending stocks and soybean ending stocks, and we got a little bit of surprise when both of those were pulled down. About 50 million bushels of corn taken out of the ending stock number compared to the previous month. The ending stock number for soybeans was lowered as well, and both of those were lower than expected. So it was a bit of a surprise. So and as a result, the market you would expect to increase. We ended the day slightly lower, but a lot of volatility once the report was released. But overall, the market just brushed the domestic numbers off, largely because we did see an increase in world ending stocks for both corn and beans, and that really is what the market now keys in on, what happens from a global perspective, because it is a global marketplace nowadays.
It seems like, as far as corn, that maybe a little stability has come into the market, maybe since that report, or would you still say we're in that volatile period?
Well, if you look at coming off of harvest, we crashed throughout most of the growing season last year. Coming in the midst of harvest, started to increase our overall price, largely because it looks like producers are just holding the grain, and so both corn and beans. So we did see a bit of an increase in the midst of harvest, which we typically don't see. But yes, since then it's stabled off. We've stayed in a pretty tight range of prices for both corn and soybeans up until the last couple of days with soybeans, but for the most part, much more stability than what we saw in the growing season last year.
And of course, I guess both beans and certainly corn trying to make sure they buy some acres here as we approach planting time, right?
That's true. We're in the market of buying acres, and cotton's obviously trying to do what it can on certain days. But overall, there's not a clear winner yet in terms of the acres decision. And not surprisingly, we've built up our stocks with both of these crops, and farmers are really going to have to make a hard choice when they look at their planting decisions for this upcoming year.
And would you say the projection as far as soybean plant acres that is going to come about? I mean, an increase that they're talking about? It
is, especially as I poll producers here in this state, I think there is a bit of a lean toward soybeans. Nationally, the acres decision is going to weigh pretty heavily still, though. It's uncertain.
And I guess cotton is going to be the loser maybe when it comes to increased bean acres.
Where price is at now, most likely, but again, rotations are probably going to dictate this, not price this year.
The trivia quiz is about where Mississippi's agricultural commodities go, and here's the quiz question. What is Mississippi's #1 export market for agriculture? Is the answer A, Canada, or B, Mexico? C, Russia, or D, China? I'll have the answer at the end of the markets.
We're going to pause for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar and the rest of the markets. Leighton Spann reports U.S. cattle herd expansion is tightening the supply of feeder cattle. In the feature segment today, the Mississippi Gourd Festival. Gourds are for a lot more than making birdhouses.
Hey, do you see something cool? Sure. Coming home.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. A turkey and quail workshop will be held this Friday, February 27th. The location is the Mississippi Museum of Natural Science in Jackson. The hours are 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. The cost is $20 and that includes lunch. One of the nation's most respected greenhouse tomato short courses celebrates its 25th year next month in Mississippi. The Greenhouse Tomato Short Course is produced by the Mississippi State University Extension Service. It will be held Tuesday and Wednesday, March 3rd and 4th. The location is the Eagle Ridge Conference Center at Raymond. It's the longest running course of its kind in the nation. It regularly attracts participants from 25 states, Canada, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Registration by February 20th is $175, at the door $200. Budgeting, greenhouse design, pest management, and alternative crops are just a few of the items on the agenda. We'll have a link to the short course's website. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot.
The monthly USDA Outlook report for livestock, dairy, and poultry offered the latest confirmation that herd expansion is underway in the beef sector. The Ag Statistics Service noted that there was more cattle on small grains pastures in the U.S. than has been observed since 2007. Analyst John Roach offers his view of how this situation may impact feeder cattle and the prices offered to producers.
We saw with the cattle inventory report that we're holding back beef calves or heifers, and so we have fewer numbers of cattle to go into the feedlot as we're seeing that expansion occur. So supplies are going to continue to be very tight in feeder cattle, and pricing is going to be dependent upon where corn and fat cattle are.
China's reluctance to increase its purchases of U.S. pork and to even resume buying U.S. beef continues to frustrate U.S. meat exporters. Phil Seng, president of the U.S. Meat Export Federation, told Brownfield Ag News this week, quote, "China is a vexing country. I think we're still trying to figure out how to deal with them." Exporters say they do remain hopeful their continuing efforts will finally pay off, even in this year of 2015. Well, before the feature story, let's check the trivia answer for this week. The correct choice is A. Canada is Mississippi's #1 export market.
We've all heard of painters, sculptors, and carpenters. What about gourders? Well, the gourd is gaining popularity as a medium for creating art pieces to suit anyone's taste. The Mississippi Gourd Society is tapping into the plant's interesting history and what it offers for both art and functionality. Farm Week's Amy Taylor takes us back to the Mississippi Gourd Festival held last September.
When you think of what gourds are used for, the first thing that comes to mind is probably birdhouses. But over the past several years, gourders, as they're called, have come up with countless new ways to make them into works of art. With the right technique, some gourds don't even look like gourds. Paul Grubbs, chairman of the 5th Annual Mississippi Gourd Festival, says they come in almost any shape and size you can imagine.
There are many different varieties of gourds. We only have a fraction of those that are available for our display here, but they're fun to grow. People love to just watch them. I go out every day and look at them and see how they've changed. Gourds have been around for thousands of years. Man has used them as tools and as vessels for thousands of years. The different shapes and different varieties determine what the use of the gourd is.
Additionally, Grubb says gourd art makes great gifts for anyone for every occasion.
There's something for everyone in a crafted gourd. There's Christmas-themed painted gourds. There are stained gourds that they make Christmas ornaments for the tree.
One of the new artistic styles is etching designs into the gourd. Wood burning is also extremely popular, and there's even a leathering technique using leather dye. Additionally, gourds can be designed using any theme you can think of, and they even make great musical instruments. One of the unexpected uses is to make them into lamps, hanging light fixtures, and even jack-o'-lanterns. Grubb says planting and harvesting gourds is similar to growing watermelons or pumpkins. The difference is, when harvested properly, gourds can last for years to come. Mississippi Gourd Society outgoing president Susan Byra explains the process.
You plant in spring and they mature, the vine will die in the fall, and you can leave the gourds on the vine all winter, or you can pick them up and store them where air circulation can get to them. You don't want them inside the house, because part of the way the gourd cures is to actually evaporate all the water inside of it, and it creates mold on the outside of the gourd.
Gourds must be set on a dry surface to cure until the shell is dry and hard. Never cut or drill into a gourd that hasn't cured. Susan Byra and Paul Grubbs talk about the techniques they like to use.
I try to shape some of them sometimes with different products, like use some lumber to make a square gourd instead of a round gourd.
And it's an opportunity to really express yourself. And you can do anything to a gourd you can do to a piece of wood.
Furthermore, probably one of the biggest mysteries of gourd design is how to actually tie one in a knot. Glenn Burkhalter with Gourds by Glenn and Carolyn answers the question about this phenomenal craft.
I bet I've been asked that 10,000 times in the last 15 years. So I've kind of got that down pat, I think. The knot itself, you have to do it when it's real tiny gourd. The gourd is there, and when it's blossomed about 3 days after the bloom with a little gourd on it, and when it's hot and humid, and the hotter the better, and the more humid the better. So around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, take a small gourd, and let's let the gourd itself hang over a leaf or a vine or a wire and bend itself for 24 hours. You know, it'll do that naturally, and it's not going to break itself. You go back the next day and you do the loop. You get the little gourd down through the loop. Go back the third day and slide that little gourd down till the neck is sticking out of the loop. The first time you try it, you're probably going to break 10 out of 10. But if you keep trying it, you'll get the hang of it.
Additionally, Burkhalter explains how he also makes gourds look twisted.
I use stockings from pantyhose to wrap these gourds and make them twist. And they see me, and you know, I collect them. One year I used 125 pairs of pantyhose.
To celebrate the evolution of crafting gourds, the Mississippi Gourd Society has been hosting the Gourd Festival since 2010. Susan Byra tells the story of how Mississippi started its own society.
I had a friend of mine who was teaching me how to do pine needle rims on gourds and gourd work. And we went to the gourd artist gathering in Cherokee, North Carolina. I decided that, you know, there were too many good gourd artists in Mississippi, that we needed our own society. So there was a friend of ours who had a gourd festival at a private one at her place. And so in 2007, I set up a tent and a table, and I started taking names. And we formed the Gourd Society in September of 2007.
In addition to hosting the festival, Mississippi Gourd Society keeps an updated website, Facebook page, and sends a newsletter to its members in January and July. Furthermore, the festival offers classes to those who want to learn the craft. Byra explains how the techniques for classes are chosen.
You just have to come up with a technique that you think people would be interested in. And when we send out the call for teachers, we evaluate, you know, whether we think it's old hat or something new. And we're always, you know, we like the tried and true stuff, but we also like to have a new technique or two each time.
With so much interest growing for this craft, it seems there's no end to what you can do with a gourd. Whether you like trendy items, intricate woodworking, chic, modern art pieces or beautiful wood stains, there's something for everyone in gourd art. From Raleigh, Mississippi, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
You can watch this story again on our Farm Week website, our Facebook page, or YouTube. The 2015 Mississippi Gourd Festival will be held September 19th and 20th in Raleigh. There will be early bird crafting classes on Friday, September 18th. The festival is always held the third weekend of September. You can get in touch with the Mississippi Gourd Society at their website, mississippigourdsociety.org. They're also on Facebook. We'll have that information on our website, farmweek.msucares.com. And Leighton, I'm telling you, this is not just a southern phenomenon. In Indiana, Ohio, all have gourd societies, and they're holding these sorts of events. So wow, it's a national deal.
It's hard to believe.
Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, highlights of the 2015 Dixie National Sale of Junior Champions.
The sale is the pinnacle of the junior livestock show circuit in Mississippi. It set a new record with $382,000 in winning bids. $55,000 in scholarships were awarded.
And the food factor, how to clean and sanitize your kitchen properly.
In Southern Gardening, dreams of summer. Gary says let seed and plant catalogs inspire you to be creative.
For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.